think it's amazing how the startup grows, not just in terms of quantities, but the varieties of verticals that the startup goes into. I mean, back then in the the early 2000s, we have like the internet boom, right, and bust. Well, everybody's doing e-commerce, everything internet. So I think back then we know that internet is going to be big. Definitely, digital is going to be big. But it's just amazing to me that now in the past 5 years, we see that a lot of verticals of startups that we probably didn't think before, like Uber, Airbnb, all those stuff, right? I mean, who would thought that we can a company can have like providing places to stay, but not actually having owning the place, right? Same thing with Uber, Gojek. I think it's very, very, very amazing, very good for the economy and society that we have all this startups providing that kind of service, and especially now in the pandemic, that really helps a lot.
Welcome to the MHV podcast. We speak with leading founders, VCs, and operators on their journey in Southeast Asia. Learn more at www.monkshill.com. Hi, Anton. Pleasure to have you on the MHV podcast. I'm excited to have you as a founder, as a CEO, as someone with such deep expertise. So excited to share. Anton, good to have you on the show.
Hi, yes, Jeremy. It's very good to be here with you. I'm looking forward, to have this podcast and get everyone knows about IDX Partners.
Anton, could you share a little bit more about who you are and what you've done?
Yeah. I think briefly, I'm the founder and the CEO of IDX Partners. We've been in the business for over a bit, 15 years or so, and we've been becoming like the trusted partners, in data analytics and decisioning for the multi-finance, banking, insurance, all the fintechs in Indonesia. Banking, insurance, all the fintechs in Indonesia. Years for us, despite the pandemic, and we see that the business will keep growing and growing, and I hope that I can share more about it after this.
Great. So how did you decide to become an entrepreneur and founder? Was it something that you always wanted to be as a kid? Was it something that you fell into afterwards? Well, how did it get started for you?
Yeah. Well, I get that question a lot. I guess when I finished schools back in the 90s, back then I think there was like limited choice of what we wanted to do, as a fresh grad. I think at that time the popular choices were like banking, consulting, or doing engineering stuff like manufacturing. So I happen to be like an engineer by major. I don't really like doing engineer as a profession. So I decided to, and then while it was my first job, but I think it was very rewarding because I got to know about how the banking works, particularly the consumer banks. And at the time, Citibank was like, the one of the best consumer banks in the world. And I think it was just in my aspiration that to have my own business. So after working for about 6 years at Citibank, I saw that there's like a great, a big opportunity, particularly in Indonesia back then, because the banks at the time in early 2000s is quite traditional. The way they process the loans, how they manage the customers is very basic and very traditional, meaning like it's very manual. Yeah. So I think I saw a lot of opportunities there, how we can transform the banking world in Indonesia to be more more efficient, and also to be more efficient, and also, I mean, that's what started the whole thing. Where I founded the company, IDX Partners, to help the banks in data analytics at a time.
Great. And was it what you expected it to be? Because you thought that you just had to build it and it will come, etc. Was it easy? Was it hard? Did it turn out to be a good, easy transition for you?
Well, I think anybody who start up a new business will have, I mean, should expect a dry, quite a long dry season. Yeah, I think at the time, for the first 1 year, we just did marketing, meeting people here and there, doing presentation, but no actual work came up. Yeah, because what we provided was quite specialized and quite new at the time. So I think it took some time, for the banks to really grasp the idea and adopt that. Yeah. So I think we're quite fortunate in a way that we got our first client from one of the largest foreign banks in Indonesia. I think that gave us a boost in terms of the credibility. And after that, it's quite, a good sailing. We got, clients after clients. Well, at the time when we started I and a friend started, this. We didn't expect that it will grow in terms of like becoming like a large, B2B fintech company. We started with like 2 people doing everything and anything, and we didn't think that it will grow like hundreds of people. We probably foresee that it's quite niche. Probably will scale up to maybe 15 to 20 people, right? But it turned out to be a big business, and we have like 150 people right now in our company.
Amazing. And when you think about that, how do you think you changed as a founder over time, right? Because that's a common story for a lot of people. It's like when you start out as a founder, you're building a business, and just like you mentioned, it's grown to so many people. How do you think you've changed as a leader and founder over time?
Well, I guess when we have like 5 to 10 people, employees, I would think it's like a mom and pop kind of shop where, we do everything our own. Even myself will do the accounting, will do the contracting. Basically we do everything, right? But as we grow now with over hundreds of people, then I think the first thing is we need to be able to delegate, all those the operational and also the supporting functions, to the relevant people. Number 2 is we need to be able to from the senior team like myself to the young team, so that they can be a team, so that they can be the specific knowledge needed oriented. So we have to be to be able to give as much as possible the knowledge that we have. I think now as we grow bigger and bigger, strategy definitely will play a bigger role here in the greater group, in 5 different I guess shifting my role from the more from the operationals, project specific roles, but going into more and more into management and strategy.
Switching gears a little bit here is, you know, uh, you're talking about all these things in a very kind of like structured way, right? About all the things that you learn as a leader. And I also noticed that, you also went to UC Berkeley, right? Which I also went to as an undergrad. I did, yeah. So go
All right,
Bears,
go Bears.
go Bears. So, you know, and, you studied engineering, right? As an undergrad. When you were an undergrad, did you ever think that you were going to be a founder one day, or were you intending? I mean, what were you thinking back then as an undergrad? Did you know what you were going to be?
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. Well, I did actually bachelor's and master's in Berkeley for
Yeah.
mechanical engineering. Yeah.
Right.
All the technical, the logical, the problem-solving skills required you to be successful in any fields. Yeah. Solving skills required you to be successful in any fields. Yeah. But I never thought about, being, like a founder. I mean, founder, I think is a term that with the startup world now. But back then, I think I just want to start something by myself. Yeah. That's why we started very small, like only 2 people, and we didn't expect to grow a lot. So it's very like a small boutique kind of consulting. Yeah. And didn't expect to grow like big to becoming like later publicly listed company or whatever. Yeah. But I think that there was back then there was like the motive. Yeah.
What were you like as a student back then? Rebellious, or were you always in the library? What were you like? Exploring America, driving around?
Well, nah. Yeah. Well, I was not really, library type kind of students. I guess I only stepped into library like maybe twice in my 5 years there. So I'm more. I'm more like a self learner in a way. Yeah. Rather than reading textbooks, but more like self learner, and then doing exercise on my own. Yeah. That's my style of study, and I think now with the working also, I think that carries on. Yeah. I'm still doing a lot of self study. Yeah. Online or offline. But yeah, other than that, I think pretty much the usual what the students do, hanging out with friends, doing going out to explore, playing some what is it the bull the what we call it, billiard, a pool table. Yeah. I mean, yeah, bowling, yeah, all the fun stuff there.
What was your favorite memory of those years? Because you spent a good chunk of time there, right? Both the undergrad
Yeah.
and masters there. What was your favorite memory, if you have one or two of those years?
Yeah. Well, I guess as a student, well, uh, well, it's kind of like protected, right? I work a bit here and there, but didn't really, know about the working environment, real working environment. Didn't get the pressure of that. Yeah, so I guess it's a different pressure. Um, in terms of, I think I have some fond memories in terms of classes. There are some classes that I enjoy most. Yeah, about operation research, about manufacturing, how we can make everything more efficient uh, and optimize profitability, etc., etc. And then and also doing hands-on projects using robots, also all those stuff. I think it was fun and very memorable for me. Yeah. Well, other than that, I guess again friends were I think the where you have all the fun with friends and meeting a lot of people. Well, that's yeah, it's a countless, I guess, memories there. Um,
Amazing. Beautiful memories. And so
Jeremy.
one interesting thing that you chose to do, I mean, obviously because, so many people, and I was, made that same journey years down the road, was you made a decision to go back to Indonesia, right? And you and I both know that so many people made a decision to go either way, right? It's like stay in
Jeremy.
America, in California is a wonderful place, right? Versus go back to Southeast Asia, right? So I'm just wondering, what was the context of your decision? I guess why did you choose to go back? Versus, I mean, lots of people chose to stay in America, right? So, how did you think about it, and how and obviously you made a decision back then, and I guess I'm wondering how you now reflect on that decision, years down the road, right? So,
Back again to the field that I want to do. Yeah. If I chose manufacturing or production, I think I would be able. I would consider staying in US and working there, right? But it's not my passion. So I chose banking. Yeah, because something that I at the time I think that will be will be big. I mean, will be it's already big, but I think it will continue as a business, to be bigger and bigger. And especially in Indonesia, where we have like the or fourth largest population, in the world. A lot of consumers, and definitely the population also, in terms of GDP, everything is going up, and the consumer spending will be going up. So I think in emerging market, that's where the growth will be. So I guess I guess there's some pointers there. One is definitely going to banking. Second is going to emerging market. Emerging market, I think Indonesia is the perfect and safest choice for me. Five largest population in the world, and that's how I end up, going back to Indonesia and doing banking, and also, well, I've been, definitely even back then, I know that I won't be working for someone or for a company quite some time. So at certain period of time, I would set up my own business. And again, Indonesia I think is a perfect choice because in terms of the barriers of entry or the cost to set up a company is quite low. And so the risk, I guess we can manage the risk better. Doing it in Indonesia.
were you thinking like that back then, or is that something you think about now?
Yes, I think it's amazing how the startup grows, not just in terms of quantities, but the varieties of verticals that the startup goes into. I mean, back then in the in the IT, the what is it, the early 2000, we have like the internet boom, right, and bust. Well, everybody's doing e-commerce, everything internet. So I think back then we know that internet is gonna be big. Definitely, digital is gonna be big. But it's just amazing to me that now in the past 5 years, we see that a lot of verticals of startups that we probably didn't think before, like Uber, Airbnb, all the stuff, right? I mean, who would thought that we can a company can have like providing places to stay, but not actually having owning the place, right? Same thing with Uber, Gojek. I think it's very, very, very amazing, very good for the economy and society that we have all this startups providing that kind of service, and especially now in the pandemic, that really helps a lot.
When you say that, you've seen a lot of the kind of like ecosystem kind of like mature and become deeper, do you have any fun stories of how it was the opposite of that, I guess, in the early days?
Well, maybe I can speak of in the line of business that we do, where we do data analytics and decisioning, right? So we have to rely on data, to be able to make the right prediction analysis, and how to be utilized in the in the strategy of the business, So back then in early 2000 2005, data is very scarce. We don't have like now where we can just connect to the credit bureau, we can connect to the e-commerce provider, telco, all those stuff, who can just provide data to us and use it, right? So back then, data is very scarce, and we needed to work with the clients to get the data. In certain projects, we actually need to pull up, the hard copies, the application forms from different branches, and manually input it into Excel so that we can use the data.
That sounds like
it was
pain.
fun.
Pain equals fun, right? Fun equals pain.
Yeah.
So now it's a lot easier. Things are moving faster, and I think also, I think obviously there's a lot more data in the system as well, and also there's a new generation of founders, right, that have grown up with such surplus or such a high velocity of data, and etc. So a lot of new generation of startups that assume this velocity of data. What do you see the future for that will be from your perspective for these trends?
Yeah, I think the data growth, definitely will still exploding. Yeah. I guess in the future, I think we'll see that more like a balance between data, regulation, and data accessibility. Yeah, because for example, like Europe with GDPR, and I'm pretty sure in Asia, Indonesia will follow suit in terms of how we can, limit or manage the data privacy. Yeah, so that can become, I would say, a blocking in terms of how we can leverage data, for insights and analytics. But I'm quite confident that from the regulatory point of view, I think we can still balance. Yeah, I mean the whole industry, the whole ecosystem, the fintech and the supervisory bodies be able to find a balance. Yeah, between how we still manage the data properly without sacrificing the privacy. Yeah.
And let's talk about that, right? Because there's always a big debate between data privacy and the right approach, right? Because it feels almost like there's the Western way, like talk about GDPR, obviously in the EU to some extent. There's the American, some of the dynamics around privacy there, but also I think there's also the China way, right? Which, a certain amount of regulation, but also it's very localized as well. So what do you think is there in Southeast Asian way or an Indonesian way? What do you think that what do you think that is going to be? I guess from your perspective.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure that it won't be like going extreme to that, to the Western world, where by nature the Western people, they are more privacy oriented, right? So that would be less extreme to that. But I think with the more technology coming up with the Web 3.0, where we have the decentralization of everything, and the technology is there, the blockchain, everything is there. That also can change the whole landscape, because now with the blockchain we don't need anybody to to be a supervisor, right? We don't need no one is supervising anyone, and it can be a trustless technology, so anyone can participate in it, without revealing too much identity, and that I think will be a game changer, and it's also something that we are putting efforts to. We have like a special team now doing a blockchain based credit scoring, hoping that we remove the friction, in sharing the data between the consumer and also the institutions.
What would you say are some of the kind of like, Southeast Asia data game changers? So one of the ones you mentioned is obviously regulation is a big game changer. Then there's something else you mentioned was like Web 3.0 that allows for these trustless transactions. But what else do you think are the game changers within Southeast Asia or impacting Southeast Asia?
Yeah. Well, another one, I think, the open. Well, again, I'm talking about from our line of business. I think open API will also be a game changer. Because that also allows institutions to share customer information. In the right way. Right now, without that open API, well, there's some, I would say a gray method to get data, which I think is not, a proper, which I think is not, a proper, game changer. I know that some of the countries in Asia have started doing that. Indonesia, I think, is still in the early stage, and hoping maybe in the next year or so, it's gonna be regulated.
And what's interesting is that as you talk about all of this, you've obviously had such a lot of experience, as a founder. I'm just curious, when you think about also the fact that you've worked with a lot of VCs along the way and so forth, we're always curious about what advice would you give to founders when looking out for VCs, when fundraising, etc. Because we always get that question ourselves, right? And then we tell people, okay, this is the advice we give. So we figure we might as well ask, our founder friends, just be like, what advice would you give to founders when, selecting, when picking, when going out fundraising? Yeah. Any advice you give them to folks?
Okay. All right. Well, I didn't have, the right hand. I mean, the direct experience in getting VC for myself, because when we started small. Pretty much, we use our savings to start the business. We know that it's going to take some time to start off the business, so we make sure that our savings are enough for a year or so, so we don't go starving. But now that I've been doing this and also exposed to VC, I think at the end of the day, as a founder, passion about the business, and you need to have the expertise, in that business, I think those two are the main ingredients to start off any business, whether it's a startup or any brick and mortar business, and then the number 3, you need to have the right partner to start with, ideally you need to have the right partner to start with, ideally you need to have a partner that can complement each one of another, and I think I was fortunate that I had a partner.
That's great. And kind of starting to wrap things up here, if you could go back, in a time machine, right? And go back, to the start of your founding career as a founder, what advice would you give yourself back then?
All right.
You take yourself out, buy yourself some tea or coffee. What advice would you give yourself back then?
Well, if I could, Turn back the time, I wouldn't change much. Yeah, fantastic. But also getting another partner who is, I mean, who are more like investment kind of profile. Yeah. So I would think that we could grow the business file. Yeah. So I would think that we could grow the business. We have a funding, to have a funding, with everything from our own pocket. The business with everything from our own pocket grew. Yeah, but I think it grew very assignments because we didn't have the money to support the cash flow. Yeah, to grow the business. Yeah. So I think that was just one thing that I would change. Yeah, a bit that we have that partner a bit that we have that partner that we have that partner.
Do you feel like that's something that a lot of founders often ask you about or often face as a problem these days?
Yeah,
From
I
your
guess back
perspective?
then in the 2000, there is no like angel investment. There's no seed investor, right?
Yeah.
I guess it's totally different. I guess even the term VC was not. I don't think it was coined yet back then. So I think now
Right.
the investment, the investment world is abundant. I mean, the investment vehicles are abundant, right? We have VC, we have angel investors, we have all kind of, and there are a lot of also the incubators as well, so that can promote the startups, right? So I think in terms of the access to the funding right now, it's much easier in a way, but keep in mind that the number of startups also like a lot, right? So I think the challenge now is how we can get the attention, right? So I think the challenge now is how we can get the attention, compete, and make your startup, shiny and better than other startups. Right?
How do you advise founders to make their company shiny and better than other startups?
Ideally, I think the startup has to be operating in a while. It cannot be like a very greenfield kind of a startup. So that will give kind of very greenfield faster that we kind of a startup. So that will give. I mean, we as a founder run the business. Yeah, even though if it's a prototype or if a very small scale. Yeah. But I think the investor will also look at the founders, whether they are passionate about it, they have the skills to do it, right? And show.
And I think one interesting problem that everyone always talks about is just like, hey, what is performance, right? Is it more? Is it less? I mean, more is better, obviously, but is
Yeah.
it enough? And then people always like trying to compare to each other and everything. Do you have any advice about
Yeah.
about how people should be thinking about performance from a startup perspective?
Yeah. I guess I think it will keep changing, right?
Yeah.
Years back, you're looking at the number of users. Now, probably you're looking at what is it now, the CAC or whatever. There are new terms coming out, right? Well, in terms of performance, I guess depending on what actually the startup is in, has to demonstrate growth. Yeah, I mean growth, profitable growth. Now, I think we are looking at profitable growth, yeah, rather than revenue, right? Profitable growth, and then the path to it, right? A founder who has passion and has knowledge on that, I think will be able to clearly explain to the investors, yeah, how to achieve that road or path to the profitable growth, and because he knows the inside and out, right? So I think that gives the because he knows the inside and out, right? So I think that gives the investors the confidence and also the standout, right, of that startup.
Do you feel like the market has become clearer over time about these metrics, about performance over time, or do you feel like it's becoming more complicated?
Up to date, with all the metrics. But I think that's somehow also driven by investors, right? I mean, they want to see something growing, looking at different metrics. So now the startups also, kind of follow, what the investors are looking at, out of startups. I don't think it's complicated. Pretty much it's more or less the traditional, metrics that we've been doing, in the brick and mortar business, but now with the new terms, and I think it's logical, to use those metrics.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And if there's one piece of advice that you give to founders these days, what was that one piece of advice to wrap things up?
What is the end? So that you can make the right plan and path. Of course, it will take some time. It will take small step to start anything. Just don't just keep persevere and aim for the goal.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Anton. I'd love to kind of like summarize the three big themes that I learned from you. The first, of course, is thank you so much for actually sharing your early days at UC Berkeley as an engineering student who was not at the library. So that means you were one of the cool ones driving around and, like I said, being a self-learner and learning by doing, and also choosing to go back to Indonesia very early on before everybody thought it was a good idea, and choosing to build your career not in banking or in consulting or manufacturing, but actually, like you said, banking, but really in the data and eventually becoming a founder, right? So really quite interesting to hear that thinking, I think, at an early stage. And I think the second part that was really interesting was, of course, hearing about how you've observed and seen the early days of the Indonesia startup ecosystem and how it's matured over time, not just from a personal basis where the data was, very painful yet fun, like you said, to now very plentiful and easy to connect. But also, I think how the founders think differently in terms of investing and the profiles and pitching to where they are today, right? As well as how metrics are measured from users to lifetime value and customer acquisition cost today. So I think it was interesting to hear that timeline dynamic in your own words. And lastly, I think thank you for sharing in bits and pieces the game changes on data a little bit, from a technical basis, about what you see are the big trends that are impacting how data, finance and technology, regulation will all impact each other in terms of trends, especially outside the West versus East dynamic / paradigm towards more of like what it actually means for Indonesia and Southeast Asia. So thank you so much, Anton, for coming on the MHV podcast.
Likewise, Jeremy. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the MHV podcast, please share this episode with your friends and colleagues. Go to www.monkshill.com for more founders' journeys, company building advice, and insights into regional tech trends.